Welcome to the Startup Grind. Introduce Tony Conrad, everybody. Come on, Tony Conrad.
Rising up, back on the street. Took my time, took my chances. Well, the distance now.
Awesome.
A lot of cat calls out there. That's kind of new.
Yeah.
I can tell you MG did not get any cat calls.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
How's it going, everyone? All right. I know he thinks he's going to control this, but I'm going to start. How's that? I got some questions.
Great.
For you guys. All right. How many people here have downloaded Editions, the new AOL iPad app? Only one. You guys should try it. It's actually, I don't normally pimp products, but it's slick. It's very good. How many here have a WordPress blog? All right. That's pretty good. How many people have an About.me profile page? Nice. Very, very nice. All right. And then just a couple more things I wanted to kind of figure out, like who this audience is. How many of you are first-time entrepreneurs? Right? How many of you have done it several times? Feel like you're old bears at this point in time. All right. That's great. All right. That's helpful.
How many of you have iPhones? Okay. So we are so excited to have Tony. We've had this on the calendar, it feels like, for a long time. We really appreciate you coming. You don't really need an introduction, but we'll give you a little introduction. Tony grew up in the great state of Indiana, attended the Indiana University of Bloomington.
That's right.
Graduated in business and journalism. He then went to New York City and France and across the world working for Danone, the French yogurt. Some of you may be familiar with Activia. That's a Danone. Danone, excuse me. Danone. Excusez-moi. Subsequently came to Silicon Valley, invested in a number of companies, Outpost, which later was acquired by Yahoo, turned into Yahoo Mail, WordPress, co-founded a company called Sphere, which was acquired by AOL, the building which we owned by the company which we sit in today. Also co-founder True Ventures, which is invested in companies like Milk, Plantcast, Kissmetrics, or a Brush. That's one of the new ones, which is a cool, interesting investment. And then, of course, About.me, which was founded in 2009 and bought in 2010. So, tell us a little bit about Indiana. Tell us about your background. Your kind of what were your parents' background? Were they in tech? Were they Tell us about where you're from.
Yes, so I grew up in a very small farming community called North Manchester, Indiana, which is in the northeast corner part of the state. And when I say small, extremely small. About 5,000, maybe 6,000 on a good year, living there. Mainly, as I said, a farming community with one manufacturing plant, which my mother's family was involved with and has started, called the Heckman Bindery. Turned out to be a fairly large bookbinding business, but that was about as close to technology as I think my family got.
Is it still there?
The Heckman Bindery has since been sold, but it is still there, absolutely. But I had about 120 kids in my high school class. I think 9 went to college. Our idea of preparing for the SAT was on a Thursday, was told that on Saturday, if I was going to go to college, I should probably show up and take the SAT test. And that's about the way it kind of worked there.
And you did not attend the Milan High School, is that right? Can we confirm that? You were not?
But
who's your reference? For people
Milan. So if you guys, he's referring to the, it's a true story. It's a basketball story. Where the smallest school in the state ended up playing the largest school of the state. And what was further complicated about that was that the largest school was obviously integrated with people of all races. And so the basketball team ended up being all, I think, 100% African American versus 100% Caucasians. And a guy named Bobby Plump, I think, hit a shot at the end of the
Jimmy
game.
Chitwood.
Yeah, or whatever, in the movie.
Yeah.
And, but my dad actually played basketball against him.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah. He was in the neighboring
cool.
town.
So you went to college in Indiana. You study. I mean, what did you plan to do when you came out of college? You know, you studied journalism and business. Were you thinking, I'm going to be a news anchor? Or were you thinking, you know, where were you thinking you'd go?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, you know, one of the things I did is I ran the yearbook. And when I was running the high school yearbook, the local newspaper approached me when I was, I think, 15 and said, hey, maybe you'd like to cover the local sports and write a column for us in the weekly newspaper. So I started doing that. And I kind of fancied at that point in time that I would go into a journalism career. What I realized when I got to college was I sucked at it. You know, I'm a grinder, and on top of it, I'm a bit dyslexic. So, in fact, I am dyslexic. Let's just. But at the time, I didn't know that. But I am clearly that. And so I wasn't a great writer. I wasn't fast, but I could plod through it and churn stuff out.
Yeah.
So that was why I chose that as a major. Indiana has one of the top 5, you know, journalism programs in the country. So that was another thing that interested me.
And so you graduate from college, and you, if I have it right, you moved to New York originally, right?
Yeah.
And you accept this job, or you were working for someone else, and then you made your way to France.
Yeah, so I ended
tell
up...
tell us the story.
So I ended up in New York working for BSN, which is a very large, I think it's the 3rd largest consumer packaged goods company, and I worked for them in product management, and great company. And after a couple years, I thought I'd go to B school, and actually applied and gotten into some great schools, and approached them about that, and said I'm gonna check out here end of summer. And they ended up offering me a great job in France. And you know, I talked with my father and my mother, and they were kind of like, "Go do that," you know. Like so I deferred my B school, and I deferred it again, and I deferred it again, and you know, one thing led to another. But I ended up living in France for about 4 years. 3 of them in Paris, 1 of them in southern France. And I had so the southern France stint was at the beginning because I wanted to perfect my linguistic skills. And I wanted to get as far out of Paris to do that as possible. And so I went to the southern part of the country on the border of Spain, where most people speak Spanish as a second language, not English. And I worked in their merchandising department and eventually their sales department. But my best all-time job, true story, it was when they issued me a little blue uniform with my name Tony and a little beret hat, and I would go to the grocery stores in the region
Carrefour.
at Carrefour and, you know, Auchan and all that at like 3 a.m. and I would literally reset their shelves, which was kind of a glorified way of saying clean the shelves and then reset it with a number of facings. And I think that was probably the best job I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, by many accounts, it was not a glamorous job.
It
right?
wasn't, but it was fantastic.
Yeah. Is it true that even when you were there during the late 80s and then the early 90s, you were setting the seeds for the future Jamie Lee Curtis Activia campaign? Do you take any part in that?
No.
Seeds that you don't?
No,
okay.
I don't.
Well, my information is misinformed, but apparently we don't have a lot of TV watchers in the room. How is living around the world? How did it influence your career, your perspective?
Well, I think, you know, I think it's a continuation of some things that probably, you know, I talked to Evan Williams about this a little bit because he grew up in even a smaller town in Nebraska, as I think many of you know. And I think one of the things that happens is, you know, it's not really handed to you. It's, you know, the SATs, you know, 2 days before. You kind of got to go get it. And, you know, in my community, you know, I kind of grew up in somewhat of a privileged household because we employed a lot of my friends' families and whatnot. And so I think that I probably took 2 very good skills from that. One is, you know, figure out what I'm going to do and go do it because nobody's going to really do it for me. And the second one is how to fit in, right? When you're employing people's, you know, when you're employing your friends' you know, fathers and mothers, that's a weird thing in of itself. And so, you know, those were really good lessons. When I got to France, you know, nobody said to me, go live in southern France. You know, now that sounds glamorous to you, but Paris was pretty glamorous to me too. And actually, I had just met my girlfriend who became my wife. So even furthermore, I didn't really want to move to the southern part of France, but I knew that was the right decision. And so I did that because I knew it would help me linguistically. And when I came back to Paris, you know, I had to be able to play. I mean, this is an A-plus level company, and I had to be able to play at that level and had to be able to play it in their language. And so, you know, I took a lot away from that. And then the Indonesian experience, you know, I just think, you know, once again, you're trying to assimilate in cultures. There's a lot of sensitivity. That's very much almost a right brain to left brain kind of switch when you move out of a Western society into an Asian society. And, you know, once again, fitting in, I think, and trying to figure out how to navigate the system.
Yeah. So you have all these, you know, great experiences across the world. You eventually make your way back here in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004. And, you know, at that time, give us a sense of, just very quickly, I mean, in 2003, how hard was it to get a meeting with Tony Conrad? If, you know.
Not very hard.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you came in and it, you know, and please tell us, I mean, not that you were a nobody, but you kind of came in as this kind of new person in the area, right?
Yeah, and actually I showed up in the Valley scene kind of in the late 90s. You know, so I got you know, I had the privilege of going through the first boom investing in a partnership called VSP. And turned out, you know, there's a good lesson there as well. You know, it turned out that was not a great partnership, great fit for me. But, you know, by the time the 2003, 2004 time period rolled around, I think we saw a whole new breed of entrepreneur. And I just think most people didn't recognize it. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be in those circles, and, you know, I could see it. And so, you know, I made an investment in a company a lot of you probably know, called Odd Post. I invested behind Ethan Diamond and Ian Lamb, and then my good friend and partner, Tony Schneider, who I subsequently have founded a business. I sit on his board at WordPress today, and he's you know, a partner of mine at True Ventures. But, you know, I saw that lean, mean, you know, methodology in play before anybody was, you know, really doing it. They're working out of libraries. They still, even Ethan today, true story, Bandcamp, as famous as he is and as good as he is, his new startup for the last year has been out of a library, right? Even though he had funding, like, you know, just to keep it real. So, you know, so that, in that time period, it was very easy to get a meeting with me. The question was, could I get a meeting with anyone? Yeah. But the Odd Post deal ended up being one of those very quick turn deals. And because it invented, you know, Ajax or put Ajax on the map, you know, there's a certain cachet that comes along with that facilitates introductions and makes a lot of stuff happen possible.
And so in that same year, you co-founded Sphere, and talk a little bit, you know, about kind of some of the things you learned there. I mean, you were a full-on, you know, co-founder, partner. And the kind of experiences you learned there. Yeah,
so it turns out 04, 05 ended up being a vintage year. And I had made a decision in 04 that I was going to go back to some basics. And the guiding principle for me was I was going to work with people that I was jazzed to work with. And I can't underscore this enough. It's a basic principle in life. If you're not in it, then, you know, go find it. It changes everything. So, you know, I looked at Tony Schneider as somebody I really wanted to partner with. Phil Black, John Callahan, these are all my buddies, you know, that now we formed True. But it turned out that that period was a good period. We founded in the course of 3 or 4 months Sphere, where I was a co-founder. I helped Matt. I'm not a co-founder in WordPress. I want to be clear about that. But I helped Matt get WordPress started and funded and structured. And we ended up funding that. And that's, I think, it's got a huge future in front of it. And True Ventures, our first fund where we raised, you know, I think it's just under $175 million. So that turned out to be a pretty good time period. Yeah. Maybe maybe it's Branch Rickey, lucky, but but you create your own luck.
Yeah, and so Sphere was later acquired by AOL. Talk about, I mean, that was no overnight success, right? I mean, it was a...
No, that took 31 months, which is, you know, still somewhat short. but that was, that was a slog. And, ended up working out, not just because the thing I'm proud about there is not that we got acquired. That's nice. That's a bit of a byproduct, though, that, at one point in time, Sphere was ubiquitous. It was everywhere on the web. And, we created what I think is arguably the first, widget that would live on top of somebody else's site. So what we did technologically, I think, was very interesting. I think that our ability to get distribution, in a space where we had no domain expertise, we had no inside baseball unfair advantages, right? For those of you working in a space where you don't have that domain expertise, to me, that's opportunity, right? Because you can reach out, you can do things that you maybe be a little bit too shy to do, right? I mean, people from outside tech all the time just ping me and say, hey, can I have coffee with you tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
People in tech, they're not going to do that, right?
Right.
So.
But do you meet with them?
No. I can't.
But they try.
but there was a point, yeah, I mean, sometimes maybe. I mean, I actually did recently, but it's just
they're bold. They're bold because they don't know any better.
They're bold because you don't know any better. And so we with Sphere it was 31 months. We ended up having multiple acquisition offers from all the people that you would imagine here in the Valley, and we ended up choosing AOL because, quite frankly, they had the easiest terms, not the most money, but the easiest terms. And they were the coolest about the fact that I had this kind of dual life between. Straddling between being a being, at a venture fund, investing and being a founder in a business, and they got that, and so other people didn't get that.
Yeah.
They wanted me to stop doing the true venture stuff, and I thought, are you crazy? That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what makes you guys so unique. Is that, and as you talk to founders that you guys work with, which I did kind of preparing for this, and that's the first thing they say is they'll say, the true guys, they've been there, and people say that all the time, but literally, not only have you been there, but you are there. I mean, your partners are in WordPress, or they're everybody kind of, you did About.me, and I'm sure you'll do something else, before too long. So it's like you guys, you have this mentality of, hey, I'm always going to be an entrepreneur. We're also investing. We have this fund. But it feels like it's very easy to relate to you and the companies that.
Thank you.
That
it's a big unfair advantage when you have. So the way that True Ventures is structured is we've all known each other forever. We've been each other's investors. We've been each other's advisors. We've been each other's shoulders to cry on. We've been co-investors. We've just done a lot together before we started the fund. And one of the things that we just thought we would try at the formation was Tony had his job at WordPress and I had my job at Sphere, and we both just kind of started that stuff. And I think I can't speak for Tony, but I can speak for myself. I always thought that I would kickstart it, get it going, and then hire my replacement and treat it almost like I do, my investments. And I just, I could never give it up, right? I had too much of an ego or too much passion for it, and I just wanted to keep rolling. And so I think where that creates an unfair advantage vis-a-vis working with this community is that there's a certain authenticity. And I choose that word very carefully because I think it can be pretentious. But I think we are incredibly authentic. When John Callahan says we started this firm to serve the needs of entrepreneurs, it means something. It's not a throwaway line. You'll see that in a lot of places, but it's genuine. Because we're serving ourselves in a lot of ways. And so having that active DNA in the partnership creates a sensitivity to the issues that early stage companies might be going through in a way that I think is really powerful.
This is a question from the app. If you, another shout out.
And can I get
Bernie.
some water?
Yeah, right here.
I got you right here. Oh,
Bernie, where's Bernie?
excellent.
Hey, Bernie, thanks. Tony, what mistakes what mistake are you most proud of?
Ooh. Wow. That's a loaded question, man. I think, well, I'll tell you. So I'll go back to France. It's actually a really good one. So I took this job. I thought I could speak French. I really did. You know, I thought like, oh God, this is, you know, I'm a smart guy. I know how to navigate, and you know, I speak enough. I'll get there. And I got there, and trust me, it was a mistake. I mean, you know, the guy who could speak, you know, Oxford English was, you know, like, ooh, you know, he could still speak to me in French, and I'm like, dude, just like break it down and be real for a minute. And so I realized I'd made a colossal error in judgment, and you know, once again, I think you got to own up to it. And I did, and I self-corrected, and I went to them. I didn't wait for them to come to me. I just went to them and said, hey, this is not going to work. It's just not. You know, I go out on the weekends, and, you know, people speak to me in English. I'm doing this, they're speaking to me in English. You know, I order coffee, they speak to me in English. Like, can I go someplace where I have to speak French? And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, sales. And he said, you can't do sales because you can't speak French. I was like, yeah, dude. Yes, exactly. And you know what? I crushed it. You know, because I think everybody felt so sorry for me, man. They would just I'd just say, please, you know. And they'd say, no, we can't order that much. And I'd look up, I go, oh, I don't understand what no means, you know. And I look it up, and then they'd laugh. They go, all right, dude, would you just go away? And I did. So that turned out to be a very good mistake, because I had a tremendous amount of fun. I learned a lot. I was very proud of myself at the end. I persevered, and I succeeded.
When you speak great French, right? Jeff Clavier walked in here with you, and he immediately went into speaking French. And I lived in France as a kid, and I don't speak very good French, but he was speaking real French. I mean, he was like,
he's a Frenchman.
He was not, you know, he was not beating around the bush. I mean, he was talking to you like you were a French guy. Yeah, and so you learned French. So
I did.
It worked.
I did. It was fun.
So tell us, we're going to talk about me and a couple of different things around that. Tell, who's heard the story of the domain name, purchasing the domain name? Okay, yeah, we're definitely
awesome.
Here. So this story is amazing. So please tell the story.
So when we started about.me, it was just, first of all, it was just a goofy idea. In a lot of ways, it remains a bit of a goofy idea, but incredibly powerful. So I would refer to it as about.me, or about me, but there was no way we could get that URL. And so when we were forming the company at the last second, we had to name it. And my co-founder, one of my co-founders, Ryan Freitas, said, let's call it Pumpkinhead. And I'm like, oh, great. So
love it.
I'm like, I don't have a better idea, so let's just do that. And I remember I actually asked him, can we get the .com? Thinking we might actually use this thing. And he said no, but he said we can call it Pumpkinhead Inc. And I'm like, great. And so we did that. And I remember I had like a couple months later, and we weren't really even working on it yet. And Ron Conway, in that way that Ron can be, he just he grabbed me. He goes, you know, like, nope. And my partners didn't even really know what I was doing. And he's like, tell me about.me. And I was like, what are you talking about? There is no about.me. And he's like, but that's what you're working on. So I started to understand, you know, like, okay, we're going to go get this name. And so I got this guy through Om Malik. Does everybody know Om Malik? Fantastic guy, one of my partners, and an advisor to us at about.me. So I said, hey, Om, I need to get this domain. He goes, oh, you got to talk to Krudel Desai. He just knows how to navigate those corners and figure it out and all that. And I'm like, okay, why not? So Krudel comes back. He goes, it's a tough one because it's owned by the government of Montenegro, and it's that's domain.me people. And I'm not sure I know how to get this one, but you know, I'll do some research and I'll figure out who we can talk to. I was like, great, go do that. And so we finally start exchanging with them, and we have to do a presentation, which I asked Krudel to pull together. I give him total credit for this. And he got me on the phone with Natasha. And that call was I think the first call was at about 12:30 at night, our time, which is not that bad, but, you know, for an old guy like me, it's still late. And so we did the call, and we subsequently did about a dozen calls. And every one of them was between 1 and 4 a.m. And I just, I like to say I just shook this thing down. I just shook it off the tree. I grabbed it and I wrestled the government of Montenegro down. And I I'm going to have this URL. And there was, I think in like the 6th or 7th call, they said you can have it. Huh. And I said, well, let's hold on. I haven't talked, I really wanted them to be fully invested in us having it. So we ended up doing another 4 or 5 calls with them at that time. And me walking them through the idea, getting every single person in their food chain involved. Because I didn't want, it's such a, Montenegro, I didn't even, to be honest with you, I think of myself as a world traveler. I had no idea where it was. And
where is it?
It's right below Croatia. It's
okay.
kind of Yugoslavia. And
we have any Montenegro nationals in here? Man, really tough crowd. Even the guys in the back there? What about you with the hair? You're not from Montenegro? Okay. Where are you from? Okay.
Oh, no.
Fair enough. Oh,
you're clearly Canadian.
I love it, man. You stand out. We want to know what you do in a minute. But
you're just jealous. You got a little hair envy, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So
we're still going to shave your head at the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
So we ended up getting the URL, and I convinced them basically to give it to us, to not pay, and not give any equity. And we ended up paying a little bit, just a little bit, and we ended up giving no equity. And what I promised them was that I was going to bring together an incredible group of people that were going to create presence for this URL if we were successful in a way that money just really couldn't buy. And that's kind of what we ended up going to do. Then we had to navigate with New York Times, who owns About.com. That was particularly difficult because Martin Niesenholtz, who's an extremely good friend of mine, runs digital there. And they were very gracious, and they empowered us to do it, and they became investors in the company, shareholders, and just, I can't thank them enough for being cool. They're also an investor in True's fund, so that helped a little bit.
Wow. So it seems like, that to me is it's a kind of a consistent flow through all of your things. You have this ability to really sell vision. It's interesting that you would, that early on, you're so early, right? You're pre-code, right? Or
pre-code
no?
For sure.
Yeah. So you're selling these images or designs or something, or maybe not. Maybe it's just Keynote, but you're selling this huge vision. Which, how do you do that? How do you? Is that just an innate thing, or is that something? Somebody has an idea. How do I sell this vision that it's going to, revolutionize the industry that it's in?
Well, vision's interesting. You should always talk about your vision. The more you talk about it, the more you realize it needs either refined or it resonates. And we got lucky. Ours resonated and it didn't need a lot of refinement. But, I think once you're able to really buy into it yourself, it's a very empowering thing. I think you can convince anybody, to join you. And
yeah.
I think that's why, not going to call myself a great leader, but I think that's what great leaders do, right? I think that's what great founders and entrepreneurs are capable of doing, which is unique to, I think, to the Valley.
So December 2009, this infamous Christmas party, Arrington then writes about you in TechCrunch.
He did.
And then the product actually, and it's, I think it's good to look at this, like, you all were talking about this even before then, obviously, in the fall. So it's not like, some people are like, oh, man, they didn't even launch this thing, and it's like already gets bought. This is ridiculous. But it didn't. You guys spent, in 2009, you're working on this. It gets talked about, and then you do an official beta launch in like September of last year. So a year ago.
Yeah.
And were you doing, did you have like an alpha stage where you had people in, or was beta like 0 users? September you had 0 users, or did you have users before that?
So one of the things we did, so Arrington actually, he did corner me at Ron's party, at his Christmas party in that December, and I have a rule with the press, and I think I've always had a good relation with the press in that I tell them everything. Especially when my hands are caught in the cookie jar, they're in the cookie jar. I'll tell them what cookie I'm getting, how many I'm going to eat. There's going to be too many. How fast I'm going to eat it. And Mike.
Why do you
had-
do that?
Well, Mike had figured out, that we were doing something, and he wanted to write a story about it. And I just said, here, look, Mike, here's everything that we're doing, and here's who, is funding us, and here's who's involved, and here's the idea. And if you really want to be helpful, it's not by writing, an article right now. So he ended up writing just a little thing. I think Luke, Luke's from About.me, by the way. I don't know if Heidi or anyone else is here, but if you are, raise your hands. He ended up, and Luke was our first hire. So Luke's super special in a lot of different ways. Nobody poach him, but he was there for the whole ride. And so Mike just wrote a little thing that we were getting funded.
Yeah.
Didn't really talk about what we were doing. But in September, he called me up. I can't remember how this all went down. I think he called me up or whatever for something else. He goes, by the way, are you ever going to launch this thing? And I said, yeah, we're starting to work on it, in earnest. He said, so what's new with it? And I said, well, we got the URL, about.me. And he goes, oh, that's killer. He goes, that's great. Can I write about it? And I'm like, no, please, not yet. That's just going to create a bunch of, a work on our end that's not going to be helpful. So, so a week went by, and he called me back and goes, I'm thinking about this, and I really think you should let me write. And I know you think I'm being self-serving, but I'm not in this case. I have a great idea for you. He goes, since the URL is so literal and such a killer awesome URL, why don't you allow people to pre-register their name? Because people lost their names on the web a long time ago, and it's like you can get your name. And I kind of thought about that, and so Luke did a quick little sign-up page for us, and we put it out there. And I think Luke was calling me he called me the next day. I was going up to Foo Camp, O'Reilly's thing, and he says, "We are signing up like I don't know, like 3 people per second." I mean, wow, it was just crazy.
This is after the article had hit.
Yeah, after the article had gone,
Yeah.
and it was like a day. It was through the entire weekend, and we came out of that, and we had a good couple 100,000 people.
Wow.
That had signed up pre-registered for a product. And what that told me and told us was that the value proposition, no matter how thin the product was going to be, the value proposition really resonated.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a massive audience of people out there that do not have a kind of a presence on the web. I think most of this crowd is a bit unique. You either know how to code it yourself, or you know how to go do WordPress or something. But most people don't have that. I'd say 99.5% of the people that use the web don't have that.
Can you talk, and I know you've got some really, really cool slides here. Can you talk through, how do startups differentiate, and how do they, where does, who's a founder in here? Do we have, a good group of founders? How many people work at a startup, including founders? Okay, so basically about the same amount. But
that's awesome.
Can you talk a little bit about how a startup would differentiate?
Sure. In fact, I can just show I'll show some slides here. And so I wasn't going to bore you with a PowerPoint presentation.
Hold on for you.
Oh yeah, there we go. Thanks. Let me kind of just flip through here. All right. So this right here to me is the first thing. This was the first point of differentiation, and it goes back to what we were just talking about. And the power of having a name that is really a perfect fit with what you're trying to do, which is to give people a place to curate the identity on the web, right? I cannot think of a better name than About.me, and to be able to put my name against it. And so this was something, that we really thought through long and hard, and we weren't going to settle. We weren't going to settle for Pumpkinhead. We weren't going to settle for Trazzler. We weren't going whatever it is. We weren't going to settle for a name that I hope there's not a company named Trazzler.
There actually is a company named Trazzler.
I'm sure it's appropriate for what they're doing, but
it's a It's a travel website.
Okay, great. Actually, Evan Williams is an investor. Yeah, great. Shout out to Ev. But anyways, so this was our first kind of point of differentiation. The reserve your name thing, I thought, there we're showing the product, and, we're getting Mike, to write about it. That was really great. Then we talk about, hold on, this to me is the key. This is the money. This is it. This is the slide. And what we did in this time period was we were, as Luke will remember, we were a 3-person and then a 4-person team, and we had 26 advisors. And I remember somebody saying, like, that's crazy. You're supposed to only, you're supposed to only have 4 or 5. And I thought, well, why? Why 4 or 5? Why 1? Why not hundreds? And I know so many people in this community at this point, so many people I like, big names, little names, just people I'm impressed by, that I want to have them involved in our project. And if we can have them involved, it's a good thing. And so what I didn't understand was the power of this in helping us to recruit what is arguably, one of the most talented, certainly one of the most talented development teams that I've had the pleasure of working with, both as an investor and as a founder. But it also enabled us to just get a lot of unfair advantages in terms of resources, people willing to do things for us. And then this group of people, and I never thought about it, but the exposure. Just the fact that these folks were going to become the face of our company in a lot of ways. And we're going to be the first people to set up pages and then to tweet those pages and to establish the behavior of our product, right? Everybody has this group of people. You may not have Kevin Rose or Dick Costello, but you have your group of people. And that's where it starts. Zuckerberg had his group of people, right? He had his group of users. It was different. He didn't have advisors in this way, but he had faces, right, that he could, associate with the product. And so the one thing I would encourage you all is have a big net and, just find people spontaneously, and those people maybe you've targeted, but find people that you can get involved in your project because it makes sense. So this group of people here divides up into people that I think have specific expertise. So Krudel Desai is on there that we talked about. Heaton Shaw, who understands, I think, as much, if not more, about conversion funnel marketing than anybody in the web. That helped us a lot with virality. To Bram Rickey, who's our CFO at True Ventures and did all our bookkeeping. So very tactical. I need something out of them. To people that I didn't need anything from, and I didn't expect anything from. I didn't ask Kevin Rose or Chris Sacca or any of these people to do anything, and I wouldn't, right? I gave them shares to be in the company as a token of we're all in this together. I vested those shares 100%. I had a very simple 2-page thing that would just cover us for an exit when we sold the company. I know you have to do that. But there was nothing in there that outlined you're going to do this, you're going to tweet.
Tweet once a week.
No, it's all that silly. People do things because they want to do them, and that's the most powerful. And so that group of people, the Matt Mullenwegs and not, are people that I think have built massive presence on the web, right? So they've built their identity on the web, and hence that was a perfect fit with our product. The fringe benefit was that they had 20 million plus Twitter followers in aggregate. And that, you see me smiling, because that was when it was like,
We're all smiling.
awesome. Awesome. And, we saw that. You people don't, most of you probably don't know, we don't publish our stats, but, we're 241 days old today. We have grown much, much, much faster than LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, any of these sites at this stage. And that's I think I'm really impressed by that for our team because this is not download an app type product, right? I'm not diminishing that. It's not that simple. You still have to go do something. So it's really powerful to see the virality and the adoption, on this product. And a lot of it's thanks to these guys. The other thing that, this gets back to, that URL, it's exclusive, right? Because it is your name. And so that's a really great incentive. But we also tied into physical artifacts. Web companies don't do this. Web companies think about virality, and I think those are table stakes now. I think that's like the minimum poker that you got to play. To enter the game, you got to put viral loops into this, But what makes it cool and special is when you take a step back and you understand people's identity lives both off and online, and they're merging, right? So how can we play a role in that? So one of our guys, Fuji Bear, came up with this idea for business cards. It's not, in hindsight, you look at it and go, duh, it's an easy idea. About.me product is also a easy idea, but we executed incredibly well. And we have a ton of people that are out there handing out free business cards that we gave them, with their picture on it, so everybody can remember you, and your about.me URL and a QR code, and you can put whatever information you want on the back of this, and we give those to all of our users, 50 free, when they start. So it's really, a way of differentiating. We did physical billboards. So, think about that, right? So you see billboards. Big companies use them all the time, but little companies don't. And when you have a product which enables you to leverage the visual identity and the narrative of your user base, to be able to put that in places such as, physical billboards is amazing. So you put Kevin Rose up, what do you think happens? Kevin tweets it. There's your connection to virality, right? You don't think of it that way, but it provokes such reach because even he's kind of like, wow, I'm on a billboard. That's cool. By the way, we haven't put Kevin up yet. We are going to do that, but we've done a bunch of people. We've put a bunch of people on taxi TV screens like Veronica Belmont, and they tweet, and then all the people that are following them tweet, and they think it's cool, and then people see the brand and they come and they sign up. So we do a lot of those kinds of things. Like here's a tweet from Veronica. So how many of you have signed up for our Times Square billboard contest? Oh, come on. All right, for all of you that have about.me pages, go log in and you can enter your page in. We're going to pick 10 people and we're going to put them up in Times Square on billboards. And, and we're going to make sure that we level set the contest to make it fair, so people that don't have 1,500,000 followers, there'll be people from every kind of aspect of the web. But here's what Veronica did, right? Look at this. I don't pander for things much, but I'd love some votes to put my about.me profile on Times Square, about.me Veronica. That's going out to 1,700,000 followers. That is huge. That is just huge. You can't buy that. So these are the kind of things that we've done to differentiate.
So, I don't know, I'm not looking at the questions, but so I'm sitting in this chair, I'm looking at these faces, right?
Sorry.
These 25, jaw drops, right? Like if I could get one of those, it'd be amazing. You've got all of them. So where does someone start, right? So, you're new to the Valley or you're new to the startup, like, I think it was interesting what you're saying, like, they don't have to have 1 million followers, they just have to be real people, like your community, whoever they are. But how does one get one of these people, let alone all these people? But where do I start?
I think you have to be patient. You have to invest. You may not be able to get them for this startup, but you need to be, in the scene. I always say it's a contact sport. You have to be out there. Even at my age, I'm out there. And that's tricky. I got a family and I've got other things, to navigate. So, but I think you have to, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to think of it as a career. I don't think enough people do that. And think about the steps and be patient about the things that you're going to learn, the relationships you're going to develop over time, how you're going to be able to engage in those relationships. You don't have to get it all, on the first date. It's like wow, sorry, it always comes back to that, doesn't it? But you don't have to. You don't have to go from zero to marriage. It's like, I don't know. Somebody here tonight, hopefully I'm going to get to know, and over time I'll bump into you again and get to know you a little bit better, and maybe one day I'll be inclined to say, yeah, sure, let's do that, because I know you a lot better. So I think you have to take a long-term view. In the short term, I encourage you still, you got to, especially if you have a social product, even if you have an enterprise product, actually, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter. You should get your posse around the table, and you should stretch and try to find, I always tell people, find the most interesting, biggest name, highest value person that is a layup for you. That is just a very simple person to ask, and it wouldn't be out of place, and to get them, and then anchor around that person and build. it's a true story. Kevin Rose is one of the last people I asked here. Because Kevin and I we know each other. In fact, he's one of his lead investors in his new company. And so Kevin and I, we know each other, but we didn't really know each other. And I thought asking him to be an advisor in my company, given kind of his stature in the web, I thought that was a pretty big ask. And so I waited until I had a lot of these other folks. So he understood what he was opting into, in addition to just being part of something that I was involved in. And when I asked him, he's like, yeah, this is such a great group of people. Of course I want to be a part of it. And he was very gracious to join us. So that's how.
A question from Chris. Where's Chris? Chris Dugan.
Hey, Chris.
How much of launching a product is about luck and timing, and how much is idea versus execution, in your opinion?
Well, let's go back to the first slide. Let's go.
Great.
Right, here we go. So, this is Branch Rickey. And, what's interesting about Branch Rickey is a lot of people thought he was lucky, but he was the first guy to set up farm leagues. So he created his own talent pool. He was the first person to integrate baseball. He did a lot of remarkable things, irrespective if you like the Dodgers or not. And I like to say, you kind of create your own luck. And I think, with About.me, we were thinking through these steps, every one of these steps, in a very serious way. Months, almost a year before we were launching, we were thinking about who's, the URL. That's not luck. You go get it. People say, "Oh, what a great URL." I had to earn that URL. That didn't just fall in my lap. I had to go get it. It's getting these people in place. Very patient. That group of people up there, that took us a year, right up until launch, to kind of complete that roster. So we were always adding people in, and then, so I think, the question, I think you're the answer is both, right? You need to create your own luck, but I think you need to execute to put yourself in luck's way. And, I kind of go back to earlier lessons in my life. It wasn't handed, to me, right? And so I had to network, and I had to put myself in a position where I could be lucky, right? Where I was mixing with interesting people that could be helpful, that I could learn from. And I think we applied those lessons, here. I think Luke, I point to Luke, I think Luke is in the beginning of his entrepreneurial career, and he's going to do a lot of great things. He's put himself in luck's way, right? He got involved with a great team. He's being patient. That's my plea, don't go. He's being patient. He's working with us. He's generating tremendous goodwill. And, when he goes to do his next thing, he's enhanced his chances, tenfold, if not 100-fold. And so he's taking a very calculated, methodical approach to managing his career and managing something he might be doing way down the road. And I think that's powerful.
Daniel Cooperman, where are you at, Daniel? Yeah. Has a question, which this is going to lead into something else, but how do you spot a startup that's worth investing in? I want to apply that to some specific companies that you have invested in and entrepreneurs. How about the first is MakerBot?
Oh.
What's special about MakerBot? What was it when you met them that made you say, man?
Everybody know about MakerBot? So nobody does. That's not good. Actually, this did a big round led by Foundry, Brad Feld at Foundry, who has an impeccable reputation for investing. So Bree Pettis is a guy who has been around robotics for a long time. He was a school teacher, not a techie, but became very fascinated with making things. One of the founders, I believe, of Make Magazine for O'Reilly's group, and became a bit of a face for that, and was involved in a lot of stuff around robotics, and got this idea a couple, 3 years ago that he wanted to make three-dimensional printers, which can print physical objects. And, he built some really crude prototypes. I think this is a little bit like Apple. I think we're so privileged to be a part of this company because it reminds me of, those first, those first Macs, or those first Apple, computers. I mean, he had made it out of wood, and it had all the, electronic and digital lasers and all that stuff inside. But, he kept it really kind of real. Now they have like a really incredible product. So I think what made Bree special is that he had such credibility. I think we'll continue down this path as we look through people, my guess, is he had such credibility in his domain that I knew that he could assemble that group of people for his community. No problem. Like, he can do that. If Bree calls, somebody's going to be honored, to at least have been asked. They may not do it, but they'll be honored, and they'll take the call. And so I think that improves his chances for success. Plus, I want to be a part of stuff that's not just about tech, or like traditional tech in the way that we think about it. I too need to be, I'm curious, I'm intellectually curious. I have a lot of interest, and, I think my partners are great in that they empowered me to do something so wacky, and it looks like it's killing it. He's selling tons and tons and tons of units to a point where he could get a very major round from a major investor. So, exciting.
What about Kevin Rose at Milk?
Kevin's going to launch his thing, and most of the people in this room are going to go try it. I think that, he's gone through his experience at Dig. I think that's an incredible plus for him. I think it's remarkable. It's remarkable somebody like Kevin, who has a very public life, is as close to a digital star, a Hollywood kind of star, a little bit crossover in a lot of ways, as I think we have in our community. And, I think he's incredibly humble, and, in a way he's very shy. But I think there's something mysterious about him, and people will kill for him. Everybody in the Valley wanted to fund him. I mean, everybody. Everybody wanted to fund him, literally. And I think that, whatever products they build, which I know what they are, when they put them out there, they're going to get exposure in a really major way. And I think he has a gift for product.
The last one is Automatic WordPress. And I just want to read one stat before you say it, and you tweeted this out the other day, that 4.7% of all 14.7% of all websites run on WordPress, but 22% of all new websites created last year were built on WordPress. And that is insane.
That is insane, huh? What that means is it's not a blogging platform. What that means is that it's become the underlying CMS of the web. And when you get that kind of growth, that 14.7 to 22% in a year, what that means is there's a certain virality. That number will continue to go up. I think Matt Mullenweg is probably, I pinch myself at the people I get to sit around in rooms with at times. I think Matt, not to exclude anybody else in the list, but I think Matt's maybe, one of the most special entrepreneurs of this last decade. I think he's I call him once in a generation type engineer. And he takes an incredibly long-term view. He understands product. When I met Matt, he was incredibly young. I mean, he's still young. He's 27 now. Is that hard to believe, huh? And I think he was a robust 18 or something like that. When we started talking in Houston, he'd never seen snow. There was a certain naivety about him that was amazing. But I got on the phone, and the way I got connected to Matt was that Malik was writing, this is back to Odd Post, he was writing a cover story for Business 2.0. And he asked me to come in. That's how I met actually. And at the end of the meeting, I do something I always ask people, like, so what do you see? Like, what's cool out there, You got anything that's, I should take a look at? And he says, oh, there's this web logging thing or journal stuff, and, not many people are doing it yet. This is 2002, something like that. Not people are doing it yet, but it's interesting, and, whatever. I said, is there any company that goes, oh, well, there's this movable type thing, but I think that one's already being funded, and there's this thing, press. And I'm great. So I mean, I just scratched it down. I got back to my office. I can't remember if it was the next day or whatever. I was looking at my notes, and I just Googled it, and I just figured it out, and then we got introduced, and I just started talking to Matt for a good year, just on the phone. I remember the first time I hung up from him, I was like, wow, that is a special guy. He could talk product in a way that was very human, and at the same time, so beyond my comprehension.
He is a human, right?
Well, he is, yeah. He's a superhuman.
Yeah.
He is. And so, when we funded WordPress, just to be clear, Blogger was out there, Movable Type, all these guys, and, I'm really proud to be a part of that.
So this is going to embarrass you just a little bit, but I had one of your, I won't say who it is, but one of your entrepreneurs sent me something about you and from one of the companies you funded, and this is what he said about Tony. He said, "I first met Tony the day after a hard meeting with some other investors that sent my nerves skyrocketing. So when Tony," this is your Oprah moment, by the way. I don't have any Kleenexes, but I meant to get Spencer, Kleenexes next time for sure. Tony suggests we meet at a local cafe and just chat. I was relieved. There was no pressure, just a guy generally interested in what our company was doing and helping us do it. The meeting was so different, and I was so impressed with him that I told my parents that night I wanted to be like Tony when I grew up." Just let that soak in for no.
Could you tell my son?
If they let me give me those shoes, I will. Having gotten to know Tony better since the first meeting, I'm happier than ever. Our company is a true ventures company. There are so many things that make him awesome, it's hard to quantify. Maybe it's that he's an active entrepreneur himself, so he understands our pain. Maybe it's that his advice is always spot on. Maybe it's just that he's genuine. All I know is screw being like Tony Conrad when I grow up. I want to be like Tony now. Let's give him a round of applause. That's pretty.
Thank you.
Pretty awesome. I didn't realize you guys funded poets, but this guy's an engineer. He's a good writer. They're a really good writer. But
somebody's getting a bonus.
Just close that next round. But I think there aren't a lot of people here that are funded by you, including myself. But I would say, your impact on our community is greatly felt by people, who aren't close to you, but who people that see you and appreciate what you've done. And I think that sets you guys apart, and it's part of what makes you all so successful, and get to work with such great entrepreneurs. So we appreciate you coming to the Startup Grind.
Truly a pleasure. How many of you have seen Midnight in Paris? So I've been saying this for years, and I finally have something I can point to. For those of you who haven't seen it, I don't think I'll spoil any plot line here, but the thing that was really interesting is, in art, if you're into art, and I am, and if you're into architecture and things like that, which I am, there are periods, there's great periods, right, that there is stuff that's happening and it has cultural significance. It's not just, community significance, but cultural crossover significance. And the 1920s was kind of that period, one of the great periods with Picasso and just like Montreal and all just these amazing people. And the thing that was so incredible about it was they were all living in Paris and they all hung out, right? They all went to cafes. They all went to the same parties. They all hung out. And it was just because I think there was just nobody else in the world more interesting in that moment of our planet. And I think that, some of us are going to be successful, some of us aren't. But the gift that all of us truly, truly get is that, we're part of that moment. That is what this is, right? There's nothing more interesting, more culturally impactful, in my opinion, than the tech community. And while it can burn you out a little bit at times, it's incredible, guys. And I think if everybody can just stop at moments and just pinch yourself and say, I'm going to look back. I mean, honestly, we're going to look back, 50 years from now, people are going to look back at this moment and they're going to go, wow. Wow. That is the coffee table book. that a lot of my generation's parents have. I don't know about your guys. You guys are all young enough, most of you, that maybe it's not, we've already passed that. But you walk into my house and there's there's art books on the glass coffee table, and you flip through and it's these incredible figures, and that's what we got here. And I think, let's just all lean into it and have fun and build great stuff and not get too arrogant about it. And I think we're going to look back and go, wow, magic.
Let's give Tony another round of applause.